Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for the final workshop in the Future of Blockchain University Hackathon series. After today, we have 5.5 weeks of dedicated building before our submission deadline in January. So today we're going to hear from the final bounty sponsor, and that is Spectral, and we're going to learn about everything you need to know to use LLM-driven systems for on-chain trading decisions.
I'm Zane. I work on the machine learning team at Spectral, and today I'll give an overview of what we do at Spectral and then walk you through the bounty and the starter kit. So Spectral has been around for, I want to say, almost 4 years now, and we started by building new credit scoring models for some of these lending protocols that are on blockchains like Compound and Aave. And right now, if you go take out a loan on these protocols, almost everyone gets the same rate for the same loan, which is not the most efficient use of capital. So we came up with this idea, okay, we'll build these credit scoring models. They'll take into consideration people's on-chain lending history, the amount of assets they have in this wallet, previous loans, have you been liquidated, things like that. And there, of course, the goal is to come up with a credit score for these brand new markets that didn't exist before, but also remedy some of the problems that we see with off-chain credit scoring. So in the US, there are 3 credit bureaus, and the scores, people get wrong scores. They're based on data that isn't fair to everyone. So we saw a lot of room for improvement there as well. And one of the ways that we wanted to do that was by building this network of scoring modelers. So instead of going to get a loan and you having to trust my score, which I think is great, but may not be the best score for everyone, you'll make a request to this network, and everyone who has come up with their model independently will return these scores, and then a decision will be made based on the aggregation of those scores. And we were really happy with that idea. We didn't get a lot of traction with that, but really fell in love with this network idea. And this network of scores all working towards the same purpose, but not necessarily a credit scoring decision. And that's how we landed where we are today. We started working with LLMs last year, and now are working on this agent idea, which I'll get into a little bit more here. But if you're interested in blockchain and working with LLMs, then this will be a really attractive bounty for you. For this project, the goal is to build some LLM-driven system that will effectively manage a trading portfolio. And what that really means is you'll make a request to one or more models, and you'll pass in, say, okay, Alice has this risk profile. These are details about her investment strategy. This is what she has now. These are the prices of these assets. This is, the latest news, any number of things there. And that's one of the areas that we're really interested in exploring. And then you'll, get some response from this model, and then eventually, either in an automated fashion or, maybe this is a notification back to whoever's whatever user is being served by this, and they can make a decision based on that. We do this live in the app now, and it's been quite successful, I would say, so far. A surprising amount on the actual trades. One of the things that we'll kind of look at later is it seems very silly to just say, oh, ChatGPT, make me money. It doesn't work that well if you just say that. But if you pass all of this information, you really restrict the decision space that you're asking these models to consider, then the results are really, really interesting and very useful. So yeah, why should you pick this bounty? I think there are a lot of great ones this cycle. I think that the biggest thing is that this is a really fun problem if you're into solving challenging problems and interested in blockchain and LLM stuff. It's, I think, a fun mix, and they work together really well. This kind of crypto AI thing is, a lot of it's kind of like a meme. It's, everywhere. It's at the intersection of blockchain and AI. But there are a lot of problems that are really, mutually beneficial when you bring those two together. And, in the last 10, 15 years, both of those have advanced rapidly, and it's a really, really exciting thing to work on. So yeah, if you're interested, this would be great. You don't need any prerequisite for either of these. So if you have used something like ChatGPT, but haven't used OpenAI APIs or other models, no problem. This is all really, really approachable. We have a starter kit. Our team's available for a lot of support. And similar thing with blockchain. all of this you'll be transacting in a programmatic way. So you won't have to use a wallet for any of this. If you've never done that before, no problem. We'll guide you through everything. And one of the I think this is one of the biggest opportunities right now at blockchain work is building some automation tools that regular people can use. When you use a lot of blockchain technology now, you're using a wallet, which is not ideal. There's a lot of room for improvement there. And if you're able to build some of these automation frameworks that abstract away a lot of these technical details that most people shouldn't need to work with, you can build something that people really like. And so what you shouldn't do initially on the bounty, just to clarify this up front, is don't use any real money to execute these trades initially. This is a do as I say, not as I do thing, because live in the app, we do execute trades with real money, but that's after a ton of building and a lot of evaluation and validation on this stuff, and people also being very comfortable with the idea that they're going to lose this money. So you don't need to trade with any real money now. Everything can be done on testnet. You can start by not actually making any of the trades at all, which is what we're going to walk through in the starter kit today. So yeah, no money needed. The other thing is it can get quite expensive if you're hitting the latest models and hosting something that runs all the time. So I would say don't necessarily jump immediately to like the new OpenAI models that are expensive to query. Kind of plan that out, and then eventually when you need to make a jump there, you can. We can also work with you if you decide to take up this bounty on some of these costs as well. So yeah, just let me know there. Okay, so agents. First off, what is that? This again is like, I feel like it's become a very popular word this year. And a lot of the times it doesn't like necessarily mean anything. This definition that I like is some program that interacts with the world and in these steps. So perception, you're taking some input data, process that data, figure out what you're going to do, and then take some action. And that like this guy in the picture says, that sounds very familiar. This could be like your hello world script in reality. Okay, you've taken maybe input data is the user's name. If their name starts with a vowel, you'll say hello. If not, you'll say hi. And you print that as your action. So there's something I think partially missing here. This definition is from this Internet of Agents article, which I really like. I think if you're interested in this, it's definitely worthwhile to give it a read, and I'll share the slides for this after. But the missing part of that, I think, is this idea that the program should also be partially driven by some LLM. And based on this decision that we're looking for, then the rest of the flow for this program is decided there. So we'll say, all right, we're going to make a call to this model. We'll give this model the agency to decide what happens next. So in our case, this is, okay, here's all this information about the markets. This is my preference as a user. What should I do with these funds that I'm trading? And then act on it afterwards. So you think about this compared to this hello world, then, okay, your path of possible decisions is much larger, and you're going to end up with results that you might not expect, and that weren't possible really with programming without this, let's say, non-deterministic step in the middle. And when we think about an agent compared to just some like a call to an LLM, there are a few differences. So this is in ChatGPT. The screenshot, I think, is from earlier this year now. If you ask this older model, 3.5 Turbo, which people still use, or up until I think maybe last month, people use it a lot, what's the weather in New York? There's no way for this model alone to fetch that data. So the answer that you get is not helpful at all. It's, search it on your phone. Well, that's not helpful at all. Thank you. With newer models, what happens in the app is you get this little search 6 sites. And so behind the scenes, you make this query, what's the weather in New York? There's this tool call select and says, oh, I need information on the weather. I have this get weather function, or this search function in ChatGPT's case, to go and fetch that information, feed that back into the model, and then you get a much better answer. And this becomes way more helpful for the normal person who's just like asking a question here. They, don't care necessarily how this got here. You want the answer and you want it to be correct. And so this idea that there's something else beyond just the model here is really important. This can be tools, this can be a structured response, which we'll talk about later, but things become much more interesting when you have that system. And the reason behind this is that these models have some cutoff date for the training data. And that's just the reality of the situation that we live in. Even if your training data was, let's say, a day old instead of now over a year old, that still isn't very helpful for many queries. You still want the latest data when you're making some decision. So being able to pull that in through these tools and through this agent system is very, very powerful. And that also unlocks a lot of new tools where you don't have to train a new model, or you don't have to wait for some new model to come out. Give the model new tools, change your prompts, and then you have something brand new. Okay, so yeah, maybe you're sold on the idea of an agent, and this was kind of like a joke internally at first, where you say, oh, these agents are really powerful, like they're solving all these problems. Can this be an agent that makes you money? And at first I'm like, oh, geez, this is probably not going to work. Just I'm thinking first principles, all right, if there's some system that makes you money, this just doesn't seem realistic. And if you go ask ChatGPT, hey, can I please have some money or something, you don't get anything that helpful. This one on the right, can you help me make money with cryptocurrency? Okay, you're getting some tips here. Some of this is maybe actionable. I don't know how helpful this is, but yeah, you're not this isn't going to immediately make you money. But is it possible that some version of this does? We'll answer later. The thing that I touched on earlier, this automation framework is really important because you think about your browser wallet now. I don't know how many people have some wallet installed. Compared to your banking app, it's very limited. There's no auto pay. You have this interface, which is not great. You're looking at contract addresses, token addresses, the amounts, decimals are all not very friendly. And I think it's probably not realistic for most people to use this. It's confusing. It doesn't make any sense. And the actual things that you can do within that wallet are limited. And that doesn't have to be the case. And for people that are comfortable interacting programmatically with a tool like Foundry, which we'll talk about later as well, then you can do anything you want really on chain. And something like autopay becomes really easy. You're not tied to interacting with the web interface of an app. You can interact directly with the contracts, and you can do a lot more very quickly. And it's not that hard, I would say. If you're comfortable programming in some matter, it's very, very easy to learn. And so with that, you can build these tools, which again, abstract away a lot of this information that you programmers around the world can understand, but everyone else doesn't need to. It's just not desirable or realistic for everyone to build their own system like this, but maybe people do have their own agents that handle all this for them. And you can think of this agent role as very similar to a human assistant, or what we call solvers now. So you can go to Uniswap and you can swap token X for token Y, and that works okay in many cases. But maybe your tokens that you're after, they're on a different exchange, or maybe there's a better price to be had somewhere else. Many people who are just looking at the Uniswap app are not going to know that. So then that's why some of these solver networks have become very popular, because, okay, I'm willing to pay this person who is extremely knowledgeable and good at what they do a fee to get me a better price. Works out better for me because I get more, in this case, this asset Y, and works out for the solver because they're taking some fee on that. Those type of systems have become really popular, and for good reason. And we see this next generation of agents as an extension of these solver networks. So Hackathon. We're going to come back to this. I'm going to switch real quick to our starter kit. All right, and again, if anyone can see this, please let me know. So we're going to go over the README, and then we'll walk through this first notebook that we have here. More details here. So yeah, bounty, there's 7,000 USD prizes in total, 4,000 for the top team, 3,000 per second, and 1,000 per third place. This we mostly went over, so I won't go over this again, but again, this will be available afterwards. The chain that we're using for this example is Hyperliquid, which I think has been like definitely personally one of the best blockchain apps that I've used. It's very fast, it's very friendly, and I think you'll like using that if you're coming from something like Uniswap. Another good thing to get exposure to. Goal, we went over this, and then our judging criteria is fairly loose on this. We have a few points later, and then these are some ideas for maybe topics that you could choose to build on here. You're definitely not limited to this, so if you're interested in this project and have some idea that doesn't fit here, yeah, by all means, like pursue it, talk to us about it. We're happy to, kind of iterate with you there. But based on the work that we've done, these are some of the areas that we're excited about. So this first one, experimentation on data sources. This is really just what input data we're passing along. We focus a lot on like a chat summarization. So, your group chat, you're all talking about, oh, this is like coin XYZ. We have a version of that where we'll take chat history, summarize it, and then pass it along to a model. And that's really influential in the system that we use. Along with that chat information, we pass data on prices, currently open positions, news, search, a bunch of other things there. But there's an endless amount of data sources that you could use to work on trading here. So I think there's a lot of work to be done there. And yeah, if you're more interested on the data side, then that would be something really cool. Evaluation framework is really important for all of this stuff as well. So, people in trading talk a lot about backtesting systems and, maybe managing risk. There's definitely work to be done here as well, if you're interested in that. This reasoning step, this will make more sense later when I show the code, but this is really the justification for the trade. So in our app, we'll go through, and at each point we have these steps that we'll end up showing to users later on. So, if the end result is buying coin X at price Y, then there will be these reasoning steps along the way. Personalization, this again is another really important one. Now we have these, we call it like an identity map, where a user will provide their risk appetite, maybe details about what assets they like, their trading behavior. And based on that, again, we'll feed it to the model. But there's a ton of work to be done here. So, in credit scoring, we looked exclusively at someone's wallet address and their history there. Now in this current version, we don't do that at all. So that's one area that I think would be really cool if you're interested in pulling on-chain data is, hey, user comes, they'll give you their wallet address, and then maybe you analyze their personal trades and use that data to come up with something that defines their identity or is used in the trades later on. That would be interesting. And yeah, so right now, the starter kit and in our app, we primarily use OpenAI models. For things like tool calling and structured output, we found them to be the best. They're fast, they're widely used, well-supported documentation, but we also use some open source models here and are very interested in models outside the OpenAI ecosystem. So if you're interested in open source work or even these new OpenAI models, this O series with these reasoning steps, that would be something very cool to try as well. And the other thing, so this time-sensitive situation, right now, one iteration of the script that we have in production is generally around like 45 seconds to a minute. And for a lot of these trading applications, that's more than enough. If this is something you're running like 10 or 20 times a day, then a minute is like perfectly fine for most people. But there are, a different class of traders, let's say, who are focused on trading much more often. We won't call it like high frequency trading, but somewhere in the middle here where maybe it's a few seconds, and maybe if you're able to run this entire loop of an agent 20 times a minute or something, then there can be some benefit for that there. So how you might do that is smaller models, faster like data fetching and processing. That could be something fun to explore as well. So, oh, actually, okay, thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, I had a typo here. So this is 2,000 for second place and 1,000 for third place. Sorry, I'll change that. Okay, so setup for this, you won't need much. You'll need an OpenAI API key for this example. Again, you're not bound to use this model or anything from OpenAI. You can do whatever you want, but to run this example, you need a key, and that's pretty much it. This is like one of the most boring things you could talk about, but this UV, if you use something like pip for Python, I would definitely check out UV. It does effectively the same thing, but it's very fast and makes your life really easy. Again, it sounds very boring, but it's something that I've started using this year, and it has really made a difference. So you just do, it's like drop-in replacement for pip, and it's much faster. So yeah, check that out. Not necessary, of course, you can just use pip or poetry, whatever you like. And then some of this blockchain related tooling, which we'll get to later, you don't need it today. We do using Foundry, and yeah, I probably won't go into detail with that today, but it's a smart contract development toolkit and is a really great system if you're interested in interacting on-chain programmatically. Links, yeah, Discord, you know that. Hackathon, OpenAI Quick Start, if you've never used the OpenAI API or like dealt with LLMs at a code level, that's a good place to start. Hyperliquid Python SDK, so they have this SDK which we use to execute all the trades. It's really easy to use, it's well documented, it has support for testnet, so you don't have to use real funds when trading. If you want to start like looking into the actual blockchain component of this today, this would be a great place to start, along with the Hyperliquid docs here. And yeah, so our judging criteria, this is relatively open-ended, I would say. Quality of selected trades is definitely subjective, I would say, because, okay, maybe you're able to look back and say, oh yes, if you would have executed these trades, you would have made X amount of money. But yeah, I think like probably what we're looking here is not necessarily, oh, would you have made the most money, but is this like a reasonable decision based on the information provided? I think that's probably how I would view quality there, instead of just focusing on like the amount of money you could have made. If you're interested in tracking that, though, it's really helpful for evaluation, so don't have to discard it entirely. This demonstration of this reasoning steps, which I'll show some examples of, and then impact across user types. So, same thing like I mentioned earlier, you have this not necessarily high frequency user, but maybe someone who's executing like 1,000 trades a day versus this person who has never had a wallet, they've never done anything with blockchain. We want these systems to, help both of those user groups. So it doesn't have to be, just this thing tailored to professional users. Something that caters to everyone is really important for us as well. And then originality. Come up with something new, do something that, you haven't seen before. That'll definitely get you points here. And yeah, just to reiterate again, like any of this, you have questions, you want to talk about an idea, we'll be really responsive in Discord. So please let us know. We're happy to talk through anything with you. All right, so this single iteration notebook is the simplest way to start. You can think of some entire system as something that repeatedly runs this single iteration. So, maybe you're running this every minute. Maybe you're running it when a new piece of information is received on some API. You're constantly checking prices and then you decide to run it. There's a bunch of different ways where you can consider how a scheduler would work, but this is just one iteration of the agent. So setup again here, you'll export your OpenAI key. And if you have trouble getting that or need help setting up, let me know. Hyperliquid SDK, again, is really easy to use once you have the requirements installed, which are in the setup guide. You'll be able to call this. This user state object is how we view all of the data for this specific account. And this is a test account now with open positions, so you'll be able to see things like their account value, the open positions that they have here. And this is all, again, on testnet, not with any real funds. When you go and start actually executing trades, this will be the wallet address that you create. But this is one as an example, just so you can see this. And this is all information that you could choose to feed in when you're actually making your decision. Some things we find really important are this account value and the positions that are open. So, piece of news comes in about, this coin Atom. You want to also know that you have a position open here. It's very important to see, okay, this is the size that's allocated here. This is the direction of the trade if you're buying or selling, and then make your decision based on that. And this Hyperliquid SDK is really easy to use. You can read more about it in the docs, but it's very, very friendly, I would say, relative to working with like the Ethereum JSON RPC, where you have to find all these different data sources. You need to sometimes index your own data. This is really, really easy to use, and I think they did a great job with that. So our example identity, what we set up for our app is we want this template of an agent to be able to be used by a wide variety of users. So that becomes necessary to define these fields of who the person using this agent is, what they value, and then come up with the actual behavior from that. This would be another really cool thing to explore as part of the hackathon is, okay, what are some additional fields that you might have in this identity map? Right now we have, for this example, risk level, token preference, and then your mission statement. In the actual production version of the app, we have a few more fields here. This like chat summary, and then a few like decision-making style, basically. But this would be cool to think, okay, what else would you consider here if someone came to you and say, hey, so-and-so, can you trade something on my behalf? What information would you like to know from that person? I think that's a helpful way to view a lot of this agent work is abstract, all the LLM stuff away, say, oh, if you were talking to some person, like what information would you want to convey so that they're able to act on your behalf? Oh yeah, thank you for the repo. And then from this get user state method, we'll take this withdrawable balance. This we normally like because it's approximately equal to the amount that's able to be traded. The one thing that's not entirely clear to me is like this account value key that they return is the sum of the money that's not allocated to any positions and the value of all of these. So yeah, one thing to kind of watch out for, but that's again just written right here. And you may want to use different fields for this as well. There's a lot of things in this example that we're just disregarding. That's not because they're, it's not valuable information, just so this can be like quite simple in the beginning. And what we do now, we'll look at all the positions, and this is a really important thing for you to consider as you're adding data is how you look at this object and it's like, okay, go through, we'll look at the keys, margin summary. Okay, we can see that this is here. When you're passing this information to an LLM, it's nice to really format it in a way that, again, like imagine some normal person who is not across like any of these problems. You want to be able to format and write this in a way that they're able to understand. It's a similar thing when you're passing this to an LLM. So what we do for those like position keys are we'll extract all these all these keys out, and then we'll just write a sentence like, okay, current coin position, this is the amount we have. This is the value of that, the leverage. This is the profit or loss that we have currently, and just write it out in language. And then later on when we go to actually pass this along to the prompt, Once you have those messages, then it's good to review, okay, does the format of this look right? Like if you were displaying this in some presentation, does the format look okay here? That's a good, just like simple kind of sanity check on some of this stuff. We use markdown formatting for the OpenAI models. We found that to be really helpful. So, once you have your prompt ready and you have examples of real-time data, it doesn't hurt to just copy it, put it in a markdown file, and then read it. Kind of a simple thing, but I found really, really helpful. Right, gathering additional information. So we have this identity map with, okay, this person likes coin X, doesn't like coin Y, and this is your risk level. In addition to data like that, the benefit of some agent acting on your behalf is that the agent runs around the clock. So we want to be able to get data when, you're not just like sitting here looking at the screen. That again is, I think, one of the hardest things about like most people's crypto experience now is, you have to be looking at your like desktop for most people and just like sitting there and looking at the screen, and you don't want to do that all day. So some agent that's acting on your behalf, if it works reliably well, it becomes something very useful. So this recent headlines is just a simulation. We haven't included any news or search APIs here, just again to keep this simple, but these are fake headlines they're real headlines. They're from this morning. So yeah, maybe some news here makes sense. Maybe Twitter is interesting if you're interested in social media data. There are a lot of things that you can put here, but we pass all of this information along when we're making our model, or our model call, excuse me. And chat summary again. So, think of this as you've added this agent to your group chat. As new messages come in, like you and your friends are just talking about whatever, maybe you're talking about trading here. It'll summarize that if it's relevant and then pass it along. So, okay, maybe you have some friend Bob who's like happy with this, and yeah, more people are talking about it. We'll pass that along to the model when we're making our decision. And again, really simple. We'll just concatenate those strings and pass them along. And so this is almost exactly the same prompt that we use in the app now. Don't feel like tied to this. It's definitely not like the globally optimized version of a prompt, but it's very similar, like plus or minus a few sentences to what we use now. And it works well for us, we would say. I'll show you some examples of like one of these agents that's been running for maybe like a couple of weeks now. Some of those trades there, but it's pretty reasonable. We won't go over this line by line. Same prompts, or mostly the same prompt that we use. So, some instructions on like big picture goals, and then this available options. So I've said this like structured output thing a few times. We don't want just some like paragraph response from the model. We want this to be actionable. So later on in this, we'll define these classes, and the model output is actually in the format of these classes, so we can choose what to do based on that. But we have 3 categories of actions: open a new position, modify an existing position, and closing also falls into this category of modification, and then position to maintain, so do nothing. Hey, you bought coin X, you want to maintain that, just do nothing. And then each of these fields, the name of the token that you want to trade, this direction, long or short, size, just approximately the amount in USD, and then leverage, and then reasoning. So this reasoning, again, is what we show people in the app where, okay, let's say the decision is to like buy ETH. Well, we want to know why and how we arrived there. This, again, I think would be really cool to explore different variations of this reasoning if you're more interested in the LLM side. Because again, there's a lot of work there, and the way that you could structure this is definitely, different options than what we do here. But the main point of that is that this reasoning is like a sentence that should be interpretable by anyone who's just like looking at this and saying, okay, like an agent bought ETH because Alice liked it, or okay, the price was low right now and the volume is high. Just something so you have some insight on those decisions. And then here's our user message. So we structure this in the system message, user message format, just so we can have the same system message for all instances of an agent, and then the user message can be unique to a user. So we'll say, okay, here's some details about me. Can you help make decisions about my trading portfolio? Which again, like you'll find a lot of this like quote unquote prompt engineering stuff to be like quite silly, I think. We're saying, hey, here's some details about me. Can you help me make a decision? Like that's, I don't know, kind of a funny statement to make. But it does work. And there are like some of these, somewhere in the system prompt we have like this, think carefully through all scenarios. I mean, this seems very silly, but there are reasons, and people have done interesting research on, okay, this think through, why does that matter? It's silly, but it definitely works. And part of the reason why we have some of this language like, okay, my trading portfolio, part of that is because these models are very used to seeing messages that are in this format, like someone you're asking a question in chat. So partially it's that reason. The other one is we view as a user, this is like my agent's portfolio, but it's not really like, the agent doesn't like actually exist. This is a system, and so it's not like, here are your details. Can you make a decision about your trading portfolio? It's kind of a small thing, but you'd be surprised how much of a difference those make. And we're just f-stringing all this together. Again, this like format here is mostly just so we can like look at every line individually and maintain this markdown style. But feel free to do this however you like. And portions of this balance can be used to be placed, or can be used for placing new orders. With this type of trading, you have to maintain some kind of buffer. So you don't want to use your entire balance here. That's what that's about. And this last one, okay, here's the most recent information I want to base my decisions on. This is our news and chat summary for your work. This could be any number of things. And then so if you've never worked with OpenAI API before, this is really quite simple. We pick a model. We just use these date versioned models. So when they push out a new update to GPT-4o, we don't get redirected there. We want to maintain like, this is the exact model that we tested on. This is what we're using. And then as new models come out, test them and then eventually release them there. And then you append both of those messages. And then we specify this response format. So this is much better for us than having to like parse through some paragraph of text. How you can look at this is each of these position classes are one single position. That wasn't very helpful, sorry. It's one position and all of the information about that position that we need. So each position, we know we need a market, we need this direction, long or short, the size, and then this list of reasoning objects. So every instance of our response has to fit this format. And this is a great thing to work with if you're interested in LLMs, like independent of blockchain, independent of this use case. The structured output, again, is something that's really powerful. So I would encourage you to explore this if you haven't. And there's information linked here about how you can get started with the structured output and versus tool calling and why you want to use one versus the other. And then this position reasoning is the class that we end up passing to the model. So, and this is, just a list of positions in these different categories: maintain, modify, and open. And then we make our call. One important thing to note here, if you have used the chat completions before, you'll see this beta here. This is just for this response format. So if you're curious about that and you maybe are not getting this to work with code you've written before, with regular chat completions, this is something to check. And we have this parse at the end here as well. And the result of that is just to be able to use this formatted class. So great, we get our result here, and then you can see that the object that we have is a dictionary, okay, positions to maintain, a list, and then each of these individual positions has all of those keys that we specified. So now interpreting this data and then later making a trade based on this information is very easy, and you can do it in a reliable way. The thing people will say all the time is, oh, yeah, LLM is very helpful for blah, 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 but it's not reliable. How do I integrate it into this system? This structured output makes it really, really easy to do so. And other models support this as well, and call it some variation of structured output. There's this library called Instructor, which will be very helpful for you if you choose to work on an open source model. Yeah, some version of structured output or Instructor, if you Google that. And so you can see this person, this test wallet, we have a lot of positions open. So we have a bunch of positions to maintain. We have some of these positions to modify. Can we see? Okay. And then we have even a position to open here as well. So this, again, I think this is one of the most, I would say, attractive parts of this agent system is how that input data we fed in gets displayed in the output here. So, say, again, your group chat maybe has access to this agent and the agent's in your chat. Now we've made this decision, assume we actually have opened this position in ETH and this direction. And part of our reasoning is, oh, your friend Bob was really optimistic about that. That's something that users really like seeing. It's, oh, I typed this in the chat and now this had an impact. This was considered in the decision. And yeah, it definitely makes sense. And I think it's, it's something people have really enjoyed, at least so far. And yeah, it's cool to see, you're having some impact there just by providing this information. And okay, great. So once you have all these position objects with the Hyperliquid SDK, it's really easy to go and actually submit the trades. That part I haven't included here, just again, to keep this kind of as brief as possible and not overwhelm everyone with this. We have a separate notebook that has detailed instructions on how you create a wallet, how you get these testnet funds, and then how you actually submit these trades as well. But it's really, at this point, it's straightforward. I would say if you're interested in this bounty, start with, your idea. And then once you get here, if you have some example process of one iteration of this and you've gotten to this point, then you'll be in excellent shape. And then, you can work on submitting trades. Yeah, definitely, Mohammed. So the update to that, we'll push it, today or tomorrow. Just didn't want to have too much here. And if you want to get started right away, this Hyperliquid SDK has everything there already. Yeah, it's one call. It's, place order for this coin in this direction with this size. There's one conversion that you have to do. But other than that, it's everything there. And yeah, that's it. So you have all these individual fields and that's that. So yeah, now, this thing that sounds very complex, you've learned really everything you need here. I have a few more points. Team size, I don't know what it is for Hackathon. Yeah, be curious to know too. I don't know if everyone has found their team already also. Switch back here. A few last minute things. Okay, I'm still okay on time too. All right. Oh yeah, so I see Hank, this message in Discord about Viper. Yeah, definitely. If you want to use Viper, you don't have to use Foundry. Really for a lot of this, you don't even have to use Foundry. You can interact strictly with the Python SDK. Foundry is really useful for interacting with smart contracts. They have great tools to make new wallets and programmatically send transactions, but yeah, definitely not required at all. And the majority of the work for this bounty will be, again, you don't have to use Python. That's how we do it. But yeah, we'll be with LLM API and then the Hyperliquid SDK. I would say I would strongly recommend using Python if you're comfortable in that language, just because of the tools that are available there. But if your team is working in TypeScript or something, then yeah, definitely fine as well. So a couple tips just with LM work. You can start simple. You saw the prompts. There's nothing like crazy going on there. Don't like fall into the trap of trying to optimize everything right away. Is UI? No, definitely not. For submission, you can, or is UI required? Sorry. You can submit your repo. You can submit a notebook, script, whatever you prefer. Definitely no UI necessary for this. And something that people really, I think, start with because it's so easy and abstracts a lot of this difficulty away is something like LangChain. And it's definitely not a bad thing. It's very useful for some cases, but before you kind of commit to that, I would say, think about what you're getting there. A lot of the time when we go to use something like LangChain, we end up getting some benefit, but then you end up troubleshooting all these LangChain specific issues. And the starter kit we have, as you saw, is independent of any of those packages. We're just relying on the API. So yeah, consider that. And then, think about how you might incorporate feedback from people who use this. This has, again, been like a huge learning experience for us was, okay, people will say, oh yeah, I like this because of XYZ, or this answer is relevant, or it's not relevant. Think about how you might incorporate that feedback later on. And last few things to consider. What data do you think would be relevant for these type of decisions? Again, forget the chain, forget AI, whatever. If you were going to someone and say, hey, can you help me with trading? What would you want to tell them? What data would you want that person to have access to if they were this superhuman megamind who had access to everything? What do you think would be relevant there? Find a few of those, maybe start putting those into the system and see what happens. And what's like new about this? I think that's always something really important to keep in mind when you're building something like this. So just think about that. And then the other thing is, if you end up really liking this and this is something that's attractive to you, when you want people to actually go and use it, how would you explain that to someone? This, I think, is always good. And also just another kind of sanity check to say, oh, okay, yeah, I'm doing XYZ, like people want this because of blah, blah, blah. It's always good to check in with yourself there. So yeah, good luck on the hackathon. Starter kit is linked here. Let me share these slides too. We'll be super responsive in the Discord. It's me and 2 other members of our ML team. So if you need help with anything, you want to talk about ideas, not sure about some aspect of this, questions about submission, criteria, whatever, ask us there and yeah, we can talk. And yeah, I think that's everything. When the actual trading part of this is updated in GitHub, I'll make some announcement in the Discord as well. But again, that part is much easier compared to this idea and then the first part of that. I don't think I missed any questions, but if there are some, please let me know.
I don't think you missed any either from what I can see. You even caught the one in the Discord as the session was live. So I think you've got everything.
That was lucky. I was switching windows and it was there. So yeah.
So just some sort of general announcements about the hackathon as a whole, rather than just the Spectral bounty. Someone asked about team sizes. Teams can vary. You can hack alone, or you can have a team of as many people as you want, really. We usually suggest you keep it under 5. Otherwise it can get a bit messy with cloning a repo and like working together and distributing roles and stuff. But you can have as many people as you want, as many people as you're comfortable with organizing with. A UI is obviously not required for this bounty. For other bounties, the sponsors have said they would like to have some kind of UI, some kind of basic UI, so that they can sort of demo it and see how it's working, but it doesn't have to be extremely complicated, extremely pretty, hours and hours of work, weeks of work. So they obviously know that there's a time limit on a hackathon. Although this hackathon is slightly longer than a usual online hackathon to take account for the winter break. But even so, they know there is a time limit, so they're not expecting perfection. But it is good to have if you can, for some of the other bounties, not this one, of course. Submissions, technically you can submit whenever you want, but the deadline is in January, in the end of the second week of January, so January the 12th, which is about 5.5 weeks from now, I think, if I'm correct. Maybe I'll put a countdown in the Discord actually, so that you can all see. It's quite a long way away for now. In terms of other things, team formation, if you are looking to join a team and you're a solo hacker, the team formation form is open for another 24 hours. And you can be put together with people who also want to form teams based on your time zone and skill set. So fill that in the next 24 hours. It's in the Discord, and it was also sent to you on email. And then other than that, this has been the final hackathon workshop. This recording will be posted on YouTube, and the rest of the recordings are also on YouTube. Even though UI is not mandatory, would it be beneficial or restrictive if we do develop it? Are you asking for this bounty? Because for this bounty, it's not necessary at all. But for other bounties, it would be beneficial if you had UI. It would definitely not be restrictive. I'm hoping that answers your question. So yeah, the recording of this video will be posted along with the playlist for the rest of the workshops. So if you've missed any of them, you can catch up on them. There will also be a form going around shortly where you can fill in which bounties you're particularly interested in, so that we can tailor the information that you're getting and the support that you're getting a bit more, instead of, if you don't fill it in, then you'll just receive all the information, or if you fill it in and say you want to receive all the information, then we'll do that as well. But it's more to personalize your hackathon experience, so we know how we can support you best. So please fill that out when it comes around. Yeah, other than that, this is the end of the workshop. So this is the end of the live portions of the hackathon, but we will of course all be in the Discord, available to help you whenever you want. If you want to book a call with me, if you have any particular questions about hackathon logistics, then you can do that. We can talk about that in the Discord. All of the sponsors are available to answer questions. The Discord is the best place to find them. That is actually a good question for you, Zane. Are you happy with people hacking for your bounty alongside, and so integrating your bounty with another bounty?
Yeah, of course. I say go for it.
Okay, cool. That answers Patrick's question there, who plans on integrating 2 technologies from 2 bounties, including this one, and he's asking if that's okay. In general, it's absolutely fine to hack for more than 1 bounty. You can submit for as many as you want, as long as your project fulfills the submission requirements for every bounty that you've submitted it for. You can submit multiple projects if you want, but you have to submit them. You have to submit multiple times, so you have to separate them. That's completely up to you, or you can submit 1 project for multiple bounties if it satisfies the conditions. Thank you, Zane, for coming in and giving this final workshop.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.